Instead of your house. Written for discussion in our meeting. Oh, good, yeah. Oh, good. How are you? But Jinky, you're doing double duty. Yes, sir. I'm such a bad summer. Wow, I know. You can talk about that before. Where, be about 7 days or all. Online. Yeah. Football started. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah. Can do everything ready whenever.
Yes.
We can do everything whenever you
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
All right. Well, good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Transportation Policy Committee of KIPTA. Today is August 27th, 2026. And it's 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. At this time, Andy, if we would call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Bullitt County. Start
Here.
there. City of Charlestown. City of Jeffersontown.
Present.
Steve. City of Jeffersonville. New Albany. Shively. City of St. Matthews. Here. Clark County. Floyd County. Oh, Nick, I see it. NDOT Central Office. NDOT Seymour.
Haley's here.
Hi, Haley. I think I saw Julie too. Hi, Julie and Haley.
Hello.
Hey there. How about Jefferson County League of Cities? Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. Tom Hall's here. Tracy also is here.
Tracy Lovell.
Tracy. Louisville Metro Government. Swear I saw Brian, but Brian's Louisville Metro Planning on this agenda, or on this roster. Louisville Regional Airport Authority. Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. Oldham County. Here, Bo. Hello, Bo. Town of Clarksville.
Here.
Hello, Brad. And then last but certainly not least is TARC. A couple.
And we're here.
Hello, Leanne. Did I see Chris?
Hello.
Hey, Chris. Let's see, did I miss anybody online?
Good afternoon.
Table, and we most certainly have a form today.
Good deal. Well, thank you, Andy. At this time, first call to action is review and approval of the minutes as presented from from our last meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
I got a motion to approve and second. All in favor, like sign aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Thank you. Greg, public comment period?
Yes, I don't see anything in the public comments section. If anything comes up, bring it up in other business.
Okay. Thank you. Again, Greg.
Yep.
Public involvement.
We'll stop here for you real quick. Okay. All right, we will go through the numbers and also our. There we go. Sorry, computer's running a little slow. Check out the website numbers first up. These are the visitors for the month of June. We did not have a meeting in July, so this will be 2 months worth of numbers. Main page saw 202 visitors. We had 159 visitors on our tip page and 94 in our MTP page. So those are all really good, strong numbers. In July, again, our main page saw a little bit of a bump up to 250. And our tip page at 166, and then the MTP page did see a little bit of a dip down to 37. Get to social media here in a second. Sorry, my computer's running really slow for some reason. All right, in June, that's our Facebook. We saw we had 7 posts, 1,467 views and over 1,000 impressions, 125. That outperformed for July, which only saw 1,000 views and 742 impressions, but still those are all very solid numbers for the month. Those are pretty average for what we see. On the Instagram side of things, June, 613 engagements, views, sorry, 613 views, 24 engagements. And then you're gonna see quite a big jump here for July, 1,800 views, 52 engagements. It's good news, but it's also backed up thanks to 2 different posts. One of them was a public meeting for US 31. The other one we were a collaborator on. The Every Commute Counts program got a new van pool last month. That got kicked off, and so Kentucky InterWorks tagged us as well as Every Commute Counts in that. So as you can see, 63% or more interactions came from non-followers on just that post alone, 75% or more in views from non-followers. So that's why we saw that big jump. Hopefully we can keep that momentum going, but those are unusual numbers for July. And then X, for when it was Twitter, still struggling to keep numbers there, but 7 posts, 235 impressions. Did see a little bit of a bump in July at 242 impressions, so good to see that bump, but those are pretty average. Events and outreach. We did 3 different events in the month of June and July. We had the Gen Care Juneteenth celebration, our Oldham County Day, and the Black Men's Wellness Day. Continue to do that MTP outreach up there where we're asking folks, how would you want to prioritize spending for $100? That continues to be very popular. A lot of folks gets people talking and really interested in visiting the booth. We did get 2 public comments. Both of those came from the Oldham County Day. One of them was needed a bus stop, or not a bus stop, or not a bus stop, sorry, that's misprint. Needed a stoplight at 393 and 146 to help them back up on 393. And then the other person said they needed a stoplight at I-71 south going to exit 14, turning left onto the bypass due to back up onto the off ramp. So that wraps up my report, and I will take any questions. A little chuckle there from Bo over there. I'm sure that's
True statements.
true statements, probably.
So any questions for Greg? Well, hearing none, public, the public involvement report, the participation plan update.
Yes, so no formal presentation here. This will be really quick. During our federal certification review, it was pointed out to us that an administrative modification that we had created, a policy we had created in November of 2023 was not in our MTP. We had put it on our website, but it had actually been formed after the MTP was created. The feds kind of feel like that should be in our MTP, so that is getting added in. But they also felt like it should be in our participation plan as well. We have a section in our participation plan which essentially breaks down our plans and programs. So I went in there, typically just added a small little paragraph in there, as well as a link to our website and the appendix of the participation plan. The feds felt like that triggered enough that it should be an amendment. And so we took it to the public, did not get any comments back on that or anything. We ran it for 15 days. But I am seeking action on getting that amendment changed so we can get that officially back up on the KIPTA website.
Those changes were listed or were in your meeting packet.
Yes.
It's very, very brief change. It's almost negligible.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, like side aye. Aye. Same opposed. Thank you. Good job, Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
Darren and Chris, social economic forecast process. Darren?
Just me.
Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Darian Cook. I'm going to be presenting our socioeconomic forecast results today. Wait, hold on. All right. All right, so I'm gonna give a recap of the purpose of socioeconomic forecasting. It is used to predict future population, housing, and employment. This acts as a foundation for long-range transportation planning, which we are currently in the process of updating. Our up-and-coming MTP is called Moving Kentuckiana Forward 2050, or MKF 2050. These estimates help to ensure transportation investments align with the expected growth of our region over a 20+ year period. The maps include our MTP horizon year, 2050 numbers, and the change from 2025 base year to 2050. Forecasts of housing and employment are also crucial data inputs for travel demand modeling, which predict future travel behavior, traffic volumes, and transit demand. So here is a roadmap that we presented to TTCC in March of this year. This shows all the steps that we have taken throughout this process. We completed phase 2 in June of this year. KIPTA staff facilitated county level working meetings with planners and officials to incorporate local input into the data. So we want to thank everyone that hosted and attended our working meetings and provided us with feedback. Thanks to your cooperation, we were able to gather valuable local knowledge to fine-tune our forecasts and update our maps. We are currently in phase 3 on the roadmap. We have made our final adjustments to the housing and employment maps after incorporating local input obtained from our working meetings into the data. KIPTA staff are currently in the process of calibrating our travel demand model, which uses the household and employment data to generate trip data based on where people live and work in this region. The last step of this process is incorporating the socioeconomic data and the maps into our new MTP, MKF 2050, which will be presented to TTCC and TPC in May of 2027. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at these maps. So this is the Bullitt County employment map. And so for our 2050 employment for the whole county, we had 39,703 jobs. And the change from 2025 to 2050 was 15,417. And for Bullitt County households, we had a 2050 county level number of 44,432, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 10,986. Right. Clark County employment, we had a 2050 county level employment number was 81,164, and the change from 2025 to 2050 is 21,259. For households in Clark County, we have 2050 county level number was 60,645, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 3,822. For Floyd County employment, county level employment numbers for 2050 are 42,259, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 6,480. And for households in Floyd County, we had a 2050 household county level number was 37,352, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 2,254. Jefferson County employment for 2050, we had 617,286 jobs, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 82,646. For households in Jefferson County, county level 2050 numbers were 360,212, and the change from 2025 to 2050 were 17,843. All right, in Oldham County, For employment, 2050, we had 27,148, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 6,728. For households in Oldham County, we had a 2050 county level number, it was 31,694, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 7,562. So KIPTA staff is requesting TPC approval of the socioeconomic forecast process and results. Also, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, so with Darren's report on social economic status of the MBO, I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion and a second. Thank you. All in favor, like sign aye. Those opposed, same. Darren, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, thank you all for your help. For those that were there, thank you. For those that had their staff there, it was a monster of a process.
Absolutely.
Special shout out to Brian and his staff at Louisville Metro. That's a monster of a task. If you saw how small those zones were, Brian and his staff, they took some of our work and took it home and did some homework and went zone by zone. And it really does help, and it really will pay dividends going forward. Thank you all again.
It's true. Absolutely. Okay, CMAQ performance target update, Kyle.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Thorne to talk a little bit about performance targets, specifically some CMAQ performance targets that are required by HWA. We've set these targets in coordination with our state partners, JYPC and NDOT, coordinating within the last couple of weeks, and action will be requested to approve these targets at the end of presentation. So starting off, there are three targets that we must set targets for under the CMAQ. These are PHEAD or peak hour excessive delay, the cumulative CMAQ emission reduction, and the percent of non-SOV vehicle travel. So peak hour excessive delay is really a measure of delay during rush hour people experience on the national highway system in the urbanized area. So the higher the value, the more delay that people experience. As we can see, there has been a gradual increase in delay experience, a pretty big jump from 2024 and 2025. About 0.4 of this increase between those years is due to the fact that the urbanized area boundary changed in those years and we lost some population. So that means that there's some more delay in the smaller area. So with that being said, and in addition to the fact that there aren't any there aren't many at least congestion mitigation projects programmed in the next couple of years, we set our targets at 11.5 for the 2-year and 4-year. Moving on to CMAQ emission reduction, this is really a measure of the emission reductions based on CMAQ funded projects in the region. As we can see, there isn't a whole lot of data in the Kentucky years, and that's simply because there just weren't any CMAQ projects in those years. The Indiana projects, or the Indiana values are a lot higher for VOCs and nitric oxides. This is due largely in part to the CARE program that's funded through CMAQ, that's carried out by UPCB to reduce emissions. So when we set our targets, we really look back at how we have been doing in the past, as well as future program projects. And so we set the volatile organic compound target at 47.3 and the nitric oxide target at 31.2 for both the 2-year and 4-year. Last but not least, the percent of non-single occupancy vehicle travel to work is the measure of people that do not drive themselves to work in their own vehicle. So it's biking, walking, taking transit, carpooling, and most importantly, telecommuting, which is why we've seen such an increase in the last couple of years. This data is from the American Community Survey through 5-year estimates. So the 2021 data includes 2021 as well as the 4 years prior, which is a lot of pre-COVID years. As we go through the years, 2025 will be the first year we do not have any pre-COVID data. So we estimate that there will be still an increase in the number of people that are not commuting to work and to go out in this vehicle, but this will likely level off a little bit. So that being said, our 2-year target is 27.2 and our 4-year target is 27.5. With that, I will answer any questions and action is requested.
If I might, real quick, sure, Kyle put up the CMAC numbers and it was pretty sparse in Kentucky, wasn't it? There was zero. And, KIPTA, just like the other urbanized areas in Kentucky, are eagerly awaiting the next CMAC call for projects. That's administered by KYTC, out of the Office of Local Programs. So, we are eagerly awaiting a call for that because, and the MPOs, across Kentucky are, interested in those dollars being suballocated to the regions. We think it's better under TPC's control than Frankfurt's. It's under TPC's control for Indiana, right? We have, I think it's, Brady, help me out, 2/3, $750,000 a year, CMAC dollars from Indiana, somewhere in there, less than $1 million. But nonetheless, that's under your all's control. In Kentucky, that number would be much larger, but it's never been suballocated. It is suballocated in many states, almost all, I think. Certainly those with large urban areas that are non-payment areas. So, we are eager to change that CMAC, number through other means. Because this program, really all it is these measures are, what CMAC projects do you have programmed and did you build them? That's the only way you get credit, is if you build the things you have programmed. It's not a matter of, doing all the projects out there. You don't get credit for the other ones that probably help the emissions more than those CMAC. So, good. Just
So
note on
what
that.
would need to happen in order for that to change?
So, I've been asked as the chairman of the Kentucky Appeal Council to put a letter out to KYTC, and I'll be doing that soon. That is to say, asking KYTC to, consider suballocating those dollars and putting those in regional hands. In our region, we have, perhaps a particularly, special need for those dollars. Our region, and if I'm not mistaken, the Cincinnati regions are the only two in the state that are either non-attainment or maintenance status of the air quality standards. And so we think that's especially important to get those dollars to be under local control to prioritize those projects that perhaps could. That's the name of the CMAC game, is to enhance the emissions reductions or increase emissions reductions. There are 17 counties in Kentucky that are eligible. And of course, there's only 6 in those 2 MPO regions. And so it is a little bit unfortunate that money would, even if it got suballocated, it gets spread thin. It gets spread thin right now. That's what we would say. And all the MPOs want the suballocation. KIPTA MPO definitely would say, hey, please suballocate. We think it's in better hands under local hands. But also maybe reconsider the need in the 2 largest urban areas of Cincinnati and Louisville that have those air quality concerns.
Good deal.
But the TPC support is gonna be, perhaps could be important as this moves forward, and we'll see what kind of feedback we get.
Thank you, Andy. And, I'll entertain a motion for this CMAC performance target update by Bob.
So moved.
A motion and second. Mike, sign aye. Those opposed, same. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, Brady, Indiana cost increases.
Held our summer Indiana quarterly meeting in New Albany on July 29th. Where we discussed the status of all our Indiana MPO dedicated projects, most specifically looking into fiscal year 27, as we just recently entered the new fiscal year. As a part of that discussion, we had initially $84,161 that remained unprogrammed to start fiscal year 27. And based on updates to a couple of projects listed in bullet points 2 and 3 there, there are a couple of right-of-way phases that were determined to be very unlikely to be able to reach authorization this fiscal year based on the timeline of when the PE work began on these projects and some of the NEPA complications associated with
these projects, in particular, some unknown historical property that was located early on in the PE phase. So, that adds up for KIPTA ID 3136. They had $400,000 program for right of way in fiscal year 27, and then the third bullet point, KIPTA ID 3369. Also had $402,940 programmed right away for fiscal year 27. Both of those are unlikely to be authorized. So if you add up both of those right of way phases and what we had unprogrammed to begin the year, that adds up to $887,101 that we need to program to project phases in fiscal year 27 that are more assured to be able to spend the money. Fortunately, there are a couple of projects that are in their PE phase that are in need of funds. So it was determined by the group at that time to recommend reprogramming that $887,000 to these two projects here. So the recommendation is to program $100,800 of STBG NPO dollars to the PE phase of KIPTA ID 3367, the Baylor Wisdom Hilltop project. And then also program an additional $786,301 of CMAC NPO dollars to the PE phase of KIPTA ID 3364. That's this Hart County Sellersburg CR 311 project. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, actions requested to approve the recommended adjustments.
What kind of dollars was that last project again, Freddie?
CMAC.
Oh, okay.
Good all. Indiana.
Is East Spring Street in New Albany?
What was that?
East Spring Street is that in New Albany?
That was, that's correct.
Okay.
That was a New Albany project.
Okay, any other questions for Brady? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept Brady's report.
Motion.
Got a motion and a second, like sign aye. Those opposed, same. Thank you, Brady. And Brady? Build America 250.
Next.
Yes, sir. You're up. I started grabbing before we run off, okay? There, oh, he did, okay, good for you.
Getting back in swing of things
Yeah,
here.
that's okay, we'll help you.
So not too much has changed since my presentation to the TPCC a couple of weeks ago, but there are many in this committee who not hear that presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Build America 250 Act, which is the House Committee's proposed bill for the federal reauthorization process. Talk a little bit about what reauthorization is at the federal level, very basic level. Talk in a little more detail about some of the highlights of what this Build America 250 Act is potentially proposing, and kind of where we stand within the process of actually getting a new federal bill, surface transportation bill approved. Okay, so the surface transportation reauthorization, it represents a multi-year federal law that authorizes highway, transit, bridge, safety, freight, and planning programs. This bill determines how much funding flows directly to states or directly to regions, or which programs are accessed through a formula funding strategy similar to our STBG funds or CMAC funds that we just talked about, or discretionary programs such as the SS4A program, and who can access the different formula funds, whether, like I said, whether it goes to the states or directly to MPOs, or whether it goes, or who can access who's eligible to obtain any discretionary grants. Also talks about within those programs, what specific activities are eligible. So if you get STBG funding, what kind of roads can you make improvements on as far as what is function classified, or what kind of improvements are eligible within Transportation Alternatives Program. And so these kind of details determine how much flexibility MPOs, states and our local partners have in developing our projects. This process happens roughly every 5 years or so. You can see the timeline listed in the chart here of the past several reauthorization cycles back to 1998 with the T21 bill. You may notice that they're not exactly every 5 years on that timeline. That's mostly because it's common to have extensions of the current bill as the details are worked out and negotiated with in Congress for what the next act should look like. And so right now, our current status is is the IIJA/bill is our current federal funding reauthorization bill. But that date is ending at the end of this federal fiscal year, and so now is the time to look towards the next version. Okay, and so that's where the Build America 250 Act comes in. Like I said, this Build 250 America Act was approved by the House committees at a 62-2 vote. It has not yet reached the floor of the House for a full approval of the House. And then, as I'll talk about in a minute, that's still not the end. The Senate has their own version of the bill, and they have to work it out between the Senate and the House to determine what the actual bill is that goes to the president for signature. So we're still fairly early in the process, despite the deadline being in just a month or so, which points towards a likely extension of the current IIJA/bill into months into the future. Talk about that more in a minute. What this shows is a little highlight of what the Build 250, Build America 250 Act is hinting at. So while all of these things could change in the future, this gives us a little bit of a foreshadowing of what we might expect to see once the dust settles through this process. So you'll notice the top left part here talks about 90% of the funding proposed in the act is formula programs. So it's a step back from the IIJA bill was heavily oriented towards discretionary programs. This suggests more of a step back towards formula or formula programs. There's also a greater share than the previous bill for locals and regional access. Some of that's through these formula program increases, such as our STBG funds that we have sub-allocated to KIPTA, for example, but also comes through increases in funds to certain discretionary programs like the SS4A program. Also proposed here is an increase to MPO planning PL dollars by almost 10%, as well as some expanded eligibilities, potentially being able to use those funds for things like preliminary engineering, not just planning. And there's also a few other potential adjustments to eligibility for those funds. And one other thing I wanted to highlight here is a quote from Addie Tomer and Ben Swinburne of the Brookings Institute, who's done a little bit of an analysis on this act. And one thing I thought that was potentially influential for this area is that the Build Act includes new ways to qualify for categorical exclusions under the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. The categorical exclusion would now be granted when a project's federal funding doesn't exceed $12 million or total project costs don't exceed $70 million. And so that adjustment would potentially accelerate project delivery and lower compliance costs. And under those terms, $12 million or 70 for the total project, that hits a lot of KIPTA's MPO dedicated projects. So a lot of them would potentially fit within those parameters, depending on how it's exactly written in the final bill. So those are a few highlights. A couple other kind of notes here. We look at specifically some of these local formula programs like the STBG program, projecting a 7.5% increase in STBG and TAP funds from 26 to 27. As well as and that's the biggest growth of any of the formula funds by percentage. And then if you look at the CMAQ program on the right, you're looking at a 5.2% increase from 26 to 27 in terms of formula funds. However, there's also a proposed 10% set aside that states were required to utilize 10% of CMAQ funds toward alternative fuel charging. That's essentially a replacement of the NIBI program, which is likely to go away. Also true that the carbon reduction program, our CRP funds, are also likely to go away as a part of this next bill. And as a clarification, when I say go away, I don't mean rescind previous funds. Whatever we have received in previous years for the current bill, if it's in our piggy bank, you might say it's going to remain there. It's just saying future years, we're not expecting to receive more from those two programs. So it remains to be seen, although we're receiving some extra CMAQ dollars because of the 10% cut off the top of the state level to kind of replace the NEVI program and money lost from our CRP program. We're not sure how that balances out in terms of how much more money we will have, but we know we'll have some more STBG and TAP money as well to help. So hopefully the net of all those changes is positive. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to point out here was the bottom section where it talks about the bridge program. It's proposed to raise the total national bridge specific formula funding from roughly $5.5 billion in bridge formula for the bridge formula program to about $9 billion per year, which is fairly substantial. And it also requires a 25% set aside or reserve specifically for locally owned and maintained bridges that local entities would compete for in a statewide competitive grant process. Okay. And this is kind of where we are on the timeline. I mentioned how this is the committee bill. We're still looking for the House to pass this act or a revised version of this act out of the committee. And then the Senate still has not produced a partner bill. My understanding is it first has to go through the EPW, which is Environmental Public Works Committee, I believe. They set out the first version, which has been edited and changed through the Commerce and Banking Committees. And then through all those committees, they put out a similar bill to the one I'm describing, this Bill 250 Act, Bill 250 Act. And then at that point, both House and Senate have to come together on one bill to pass and get signed to the president. That's unlikely to happen, and so we're likely to have an extension of the current bill until they can get to the point where Congress can pass a new bill. So on August 2nd, Senate Appropriations Committee Chair and Vice Chair released a bipartisan continuing resolution. This is to extend not just the transportation funding into beyond the current fiscal year, but all federal government funding through at least December 11th, 2026. This is the Senate's proposal that I'm discussing here. The programs that are funded through the Highway Trust Fund would receive a prorated funding amount for the period that it's based on. So through December 11th, would be prorated for the same amount that we received in fiscal year 26. And we continue the Highway Trust Fund spending authority. However, this extension of funds as of now does not cover Division J, which basically covers all of the transportation funding sources that were funded through the general fund, not the Highway Trust Fund. That includes some formula programs like the bridge formula program I discussed a minute ago, or NEVI program like I discussed a minute ago, and also some discretionary competitive programs like SS4A, build, etc. Once again, not to say that they're rescinding dollars, it's just saying right now there's not a plan to have an extension to December 11th. That may change. Hopefully will change by the time the dust settles. But something to be aware of. The Senate extension still needs to be approved by the House. The House has the similar situation where the House and the Senate have to all agree on the same thing. The House has their own version of a continuing resolution, which actually doesn't talk about transportation extension at all. And so the House will either need to accept the Senate's resolution as I've described, or what's more likely, the House and the Senate will negotiate one agreement that will then go to the president. So, in short, we're probably gonna get an extension of the bill through at least December 11th, and then it's also likely that we'll probably get a second extension beyond that, based on where the Senate is at in their process for the reauthorization. Happy to answer any questions.
Brady, thank you. That was good. Informative.
Thank you.
Moving Kentuckiana 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Transportation Improvement Program, the project update, Chris and Kyle. Chris?
Hello again. Chris and I are gonna talk a little bit about the timeline for project listings for the new TIP and MTP. Alrighty, so I'm gonna talk about some big picture things starting out. As well as some dates and discuss a little bit about the new MT projects, and then Chris will take it from there and discuss some important updates to the project applications and scoring processes, as well as deadlines for projects being included in the initial TIP and MTP drafts, and how this all works out with the remaining add-on bonds and amendments for the current existing MTP. So, big picture, public review of the drafts and TIP and MTP will begin in March of 2027. This means that all project listings must be approved prior to then. And this will line everything up for the final TBC approval in May of 2027. We kicked this process off just pretty recently. A lot of you all have probably received emails from us about asking about existing projects. Chris will get into that a little bit later. It's important that you all respond to that and ask us any questions if you have them. Yeah. All right. However, first we need your all's help. Now is the time to think big about big unfunded bold projects in the region and the unfunded opening past 2031. And these projects will be included in the new MTP. Can I get it out for Chris now?
Let me reiterate, those could be projects that maybe they won't even be done until 2045.
Trust.
Think big, we're ready to add some new stuff into there.
These projects don't have to have funding, just to be clear, right? These projects, these MTP only projects, they don't need funding. TIP projects would, the MTP projects, they would not.
Right. Thank you, Kyle and Andy. Alright, so most of you know, our product scoring was updated just back in June, I believe. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how that's gonna relate to how it does relate now to our KIPTA project applications. So our new scoring rubric was approved, as you know, and at this point, all of the full project applications that any of you have been doing in the last week or two and moving forward, those will have the updated scoring system attached to them. All projects to be included in the new MTP and subset TIP are gonna have to be scored or rescored, so that's new and existing. That means you're gonna need at least one full project application to be made to acquire that score, even if this is a project we've had in our system for a while, because it's the old score. You can't compare the old score with the new scores. Okay, so we understand that's gonna be a massive task for some agency. And KIPTA staff came up with a plan to try to assist with the applications as much as we possibly can. So recently, as Kyle mentioned, some of you would have received an email, either from myself, Kyle, or Darian. And we sent these out to the main project contacts for the agencies. In KYTC's case, we sent it to District 5 because we're gonna be working on the highway plan updates in conjunction with this. So agencies with numerous active projects in the TIP and MTP, they would have received an attached existing projects worksheet. And, other agencies that, we've got a few that maybe just have one project. We just simply sent the email and there's a couple that we know are gonna be in the call for projects, so we're just waiting for the update with those separately. All right, so a little bit about the worksheets. If anyone hasn't had a chance to look at it, what you'll find is an instruction tab and then a sheet with every active MTP and TIP project for that particular sponsor agency, and also relevant project information. There's gonna be 4 mandatory questions highlighted in yellow. And at this stage, that's all we're asking is just short answers. Some of them are even drop down answers to those questions. The goal is to determine whether KIPTA staff has enough information to complete the new project applications. And if we don't, create a list of which projects we would need the sponsor agency to resubmit the application. So what info is needed? We're looking to do a status check on all of these projects. Again, these are everything we have in the TIP and MTP now. Some projects might be completed or will be completed and won't need to go into the new MTP. So we want to know that now. Also any that maybe for whatever reason you wish to make them inactive, we're checking on that now as well. We are looking at the open to public dates. Some of the MTP only projects in particular, the ones that are unfunded, if they have an open to public date coming up next year and they don't have funding yet, it's highly unlikely that that date is accurate. So we want to update those dates with the MTP update. And also if probably just the similar projects, if they want to have the total estimated project cost updated, KIPTA staff can probably do that in the open to public date ourselves. We wouldn't need any other information unless you have more intense changes. So if there are bigger changes such as TIP funding or scope changes with those projects, we would have to ask the sponsor agency to complete the application. All right, so let's see. Oh, I should say, if you would rather complete the applications, we don't have to do them for you. This is just us trying to make it a little easier, especially for our agencies that have a lot of projects. If you would rather have your staff complete the applications, that is perfectly fine. And so that question is also attached to the emails. We just would need to know. And if you want us to do it, we will be happy to do it. And if we do the applications, for those that don't know, whenever an application is submitted, there's the submitter's email and the project contact emails attached to that application. And then after we hit submit, a copy of the application is sent to both of those emails. So hypothetically, if KIPTA staff were to do the applications, the project contact would get a copy of what we submitted, and then you could review it, and if there was something that we had incorrect, we can go ahead and fix it. Okay, so one last thing on this, we are hoping that we can get these worksheets or also responses to the emails by September 11th. And that way we'll be able to proceed with the applications that you would like us to complete. Now I'm gonna shift gears. So we still have our Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP and the FY 25 to 28 TIP for a bit longer. And so now I want to talk about the transition a little bit and what we have remaining. Okay. So administrative modifications, most of you know, we do those as needed, usually once every month. And I'm thinking that for the deadline to have administrative modifications made to a project that would carry over to the new MTP and TIP, that deadline would be probably sometime in January. Whatever number admin mod in January, that would be the one that will carry over to the new draft. And right now, we are in Amendment 5. It is active. TIP Amendment 5, MTP Amendment 14. same list, two different names still. And that one, we looked at that via email with the IAC group, and it looks like we will not have to have any changes that affect the model. And we're looking at TPC approval to be requested next month. So that should be coming up soon. And as stated earlier, the full project application is now connected to the updated scoring system. So moving forward, any applications we get, they will set that project up. Assuming it needs to be in the new documents, that'll be set up for the draft list of the MTP and TIP. And we're gonna do a lot of reminders on that, and that might sound confusing right now, so please just ask, because there's a lot of moving parts. And we also have plans coming up this fall, Amendment 6, MTP Amendment 15. This will be to the current documents. It will possibly be the last amendment to the current documents. We are expecting to include all of the KYTC 6-year plan 2026 updates. So it's likely going to be a really large amendment. And yeah, if needed, we might have an amendment 7. That would be later on in the winter, and that one, if the changes in that one need to be in the new MTP and TIP, they would probably have to just be re-amended in what will ultimately be Amendment 1 to the new MTP and TIP. And of course, that would be pending the federal approval of the new updates, of the new MTP and TIP updates. So there's going to be a time where changes requested are happening when we have our initial drafts being reviewed by the public or whatever review stage they're in. Some of those changes might only be needed to the current TIP and MTP. Those would go in the hypothetical Amendment 6 or 7. Changes that are needed to the new MTP and TIP would go in the Amendment 1 list. But again, that won't be fully completed until sometime in the summer next year when we have the new MTP and TIP. So there's going to be a bit of like a moratorium. We'll accept the applications, but it might be a period of time where we're just not going to have the changes official because we have our documents in review stages. And one more thing on this, the upcoming call for projects of MPO dedicated funds, those changes, if they are at an amendment level, they likely would have to be in Amendment 1 to the new TIP and MTP. And if they have to be in the current documents, they would be in that Amendment 7, but we'll have to see when all the dust settles with that. Again, we'll discuss this again, and we'll have some timeline reminders coming out up until the point where our drafts are being reviewed. I will briefly show you, this is the timeline for the active amendment, Amendment 5. Like I said, we'll be looking at this one and I'll be requesting approval hopefully next month at the TPC meeting. And here is my tentative Amendment 6 timeline. This one, we would hope to have all of our project applications in by September 30th. So that'll be the larger one that I was speaking about earlier. I have some to be determined dates here, mainly because of the holidays in November. Veterans Day is when we would typically have the TCC meeting, and Thanksgiving, the TPC meeting. So those are to be determined coming up down the road. Well, that's all I have. It's stuck, but that's all I really have.
Okay.
If anyone's got any questions or would like to communicate outside of the meeting, let me know.
Yeah, it's always a tricky time to go from one of these to the other. So I think long story short is please get your projects in as soon as possible and all of that, all those things that Chris was saying. That's us trying to continue to get y'all's projects into this tip as quick as we possibly can. Sometimes that takes a while, and sometimes it's confusing, and we understand, but if you have any questions, please reach out to Chris or myself or get the staff, and we'll
The
get
goal is
projects
as
in there.
quick as possible,
That's right.
always.
Always.
She covered 11 too at the same time.
No, the 11 will be a real quick one.
Nope,
Okay.
got one more.
Yeah.
That's okay, but
Hopefully my clicker works.
It's good segue though. She was talking about the process.
all right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so we didn't have a meeting last month. I have 2 administrative modifications to go through. Both of these are in your meeting packet. We've got a number of updates that were submitted. And I'm gonna go through administrative modification 15, which was processed on August 4th. The TPC as well as KYTC and NDOT were notified back on the 4th. And then I'm gonna go through administrative modification 16, and that draft is following 15 in the packet. This one includes those updates that Brady covered with the Indiana MPO dedicated funding action item agenda item number 8. Those are also included in this. That's why it's a draft form. I am planning to process that and make it official following this meeting. As a reminder, we've got specific qualifying criteria for an update to be eligible for administrative modifications. These are meant to be minor changes that do not need the scrutiny of an amendment. And again, KIPTA staff, whenever possible, we will default to doing the change through an administrative modification as much as possible, just to get those changes updated in the tip and STIPs. Admin mod 15, also known as MTP, admin mod 34. That one starts out with Park County Henryville Sidewalk Project, with ID 3180. The update was to the total cost, to funding, and moving to earlier years with the open to public date, moving to an earlier year of 2029. And I've got some NDOT projects. I have the SR 60 and Perry Crossing road intersection improvement project. That one's getting tip funding and total project costs, and the open to public date updated. I have 5 new maintenance group projects. These are along state routes 64, 62, 2 on 60, I think, and 1 on 362. And then there is 1 new safety group project near the exit ramp on Spring Street in New Albany. Another 2 changes that, really quick, I want to point out DES numbers 2600752, 2600754, 2600755 are all completely in the illustrative years to the current tip. So I just want to point that out to everyone. And then we have SR 62 at Utica Sellersburg Road safety project. That one is just getting an update to tip funding. Okay, so next in the admin mod 15, we have the Kentucky updates. I have the I-65 bridge at Muhammad Ali and Brook, and the I-64 bridge at P&L Railway. Both updates are to the total cost and open to public date and tip funding. And now I have some new maintenance projects in Kentucky. There's a US 42 and US 60. I-71 northbound and southbound rest area truck parking expansion projects. And a high friction surface treatment to a number of roadways. These are on I-64, Kentucky 22, 1065, 1931, US 33 East, and Kentucky 329, all getting just a minor maintenance, high friction surface treatment, new group project. And a new pavement resurfacing project. Pavement resurfacing project on Kentucky 25th And finishing it out, there are two Louisville Metro projects, the LaGrange Road Bike Ped Project 1791. That one is getting updates to the funding and total cost, and 1634, we are adding a state ID that we did not previously have. Now I will move on to administrative modification 16. Again, I'm gonna process this after this meeting. I'm gonna start with Indiana again. So these first two were discussed in Brady's presentation. I should say that in the packet, there are a couple of changes that are different. In the final draft, they'll be a little different than the packet. In the CR 311 in Sellersburg improvements project, I got a line item of canceling a previously modified fiscal year 27 PE that got absorbed into this new one that we're adding, so there's that minor change, and in the end, the total cost programmed in the TIF is gonna be 3.78 million. And then the Floyd County one, the Baylor Wisman Hilltop project, that one we had the wrong funding source, it said group 3. So that will be changed in the final draft. And next I'll move on to some NDOT projects. There's a correction to the DES number for the SR 64 bridge over Georgetown Creek. And we are having a new group project, high mast tower lighting replacement. We have DES 2200837. That project is gonna be combined with DES 2201148. So both of these projects are existing maintenance group projects with same project limits. And what I did in the final draft is I combined the funding as well as the description with KIPTA ID 3056. And finally, I've got I-265 at International Drive. That one is just getting some funding updates. And two Kentucky project updates in this one. We've got KIPTA ID 3513, Kentucky 2050. There is a correction to the funding source. That project was new in Admin Mod 15, which I just talked about. And we've got a new pavement resurfacing project at Kentucky 61 and Kentucky 1703. And that concludes all of our administrative modifications.
Thank you, Chris.
I had a comment on administrative mod 15, and that maybe, I just don't remember in Jefferson County there being a US 33E, and I was wondering if that might be a typo.
I will, thank you, I will figure that out.
Oh,
Maybe
yes,
it's 31,
Surely.
Yeah, I was thinking it was.
okay,
Can't think of any others that have the E. Will script.
okay, you're probably right, thank you for catching that. Anything else?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, so a couple announcements. First, talking about our upcoming meetings. Next month, we will have our regularly scheduled meeting on here in this room, and it's on September 24th at 12:30, 11:30 Central. October, we can plan to take October off so we can go buy some Halloween candy or whatnot. So we will take October off from the TPC meeting and the TTCC meeting and the board of directors meetings as well. So, okay, and that'll lead into November. Chris mentioned in her presentation, or one of those presentations, about how our 2 monthly transportation committee meetings are fouled up by holidays that month. We've got TTCC that's on Veterans Day, and we've got TPC that's on Thanksgiving. Okay, so what we should probably plan for the TPC for November, what we should expect is likely for that meeting to be to occur on the Tuesday in advance of Thanksgiving at a location to be determined. And hopefully there'll be some announcements for too long on that meeting. So that would be on November 24th. November 24th is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so be on the lookout for announcements. So to recap, normal meeting next month. No meetings in October, and especially given some of the things we talked about today, a full meeting in November. Brady mentioned about the August recess and how Congress and the Build America has gotten through at least one of the House committees, and some things are going on, and we're eager to find out about that. Well, if you've ever wanted to have a conversation or be in the room with the congressman to have a conversation about that, at this afternoon's board meeting, Congressman Brett Guthrie will be in attendance here at KIPTAS. So Congressman Guthrie will be talking to us here in the next hour or two. So that's cool. Very cool. And then also want to recognize the folks that we that jumped in right when the roll call. And so that includes Brian Davis. I mentioned your name, but Brian from Metro Planning. Also from Metro's Deputy Mayor George, Nicole George, Mike King's on the line as well. Sean Spencer from Shively is here. And then I also want to recognize Tanya Higdon from Federal Highways Administration. So there's Tanya. I think she's coming off there. Hey, Tanya, anything you want to add or mention?
Sounds good. I do want to say thank you to all those involved in getting the MOU processed. I'm very happy that we have the air quality conformity consultation in place. So thank you.
All right, we have breaking news today. So today the memorandum of understanding for our air quality process. It's been a long time coming in terms of getting certain signatures and whatnot. So we got the final signature I think this morning. Is that right, Tanya?
That is correct. Yes.
All right. So
yes, very happy.
So well, we're excited
Thank
about that.
you.
So and that concludes my MPO director's report.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other business to bring before the PPC? Well, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the TPC.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. Bowen. Oh, so moved.
No.
So moved, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, sign aye. Those opposed, the same. Again, thank you all.